So today we're going to discuss discovering your real estate niche, and keep watching to see our bonus list of niches that are really outside of the real estate traditional niches, and they might expand your mind to other possibilities for your own niche. Hi, this is Real Estate with Elise and Jay, and I'm Jay, and Elise won't be joining us today. So if you're a realtor, we'd love to partner up and help you become the local market expert in your area. Our contact information is in the description below, and if you have any questions, please feel free to call, text, or email us. So the main thing about discovering your niche is understanding what your niche is and how to match that up with the things that you like to do, and then eventually how to get more information and knowledge in your niche area so you can start to become the expert and at least know more than the average person about your niche. So they say it takes about 10,000 hours of practicing and studying something to become a master of that subject. But they say you only need about 100 hours to get ahead of 80% of the rest of the group. And that's the good news, because what that means is you can get 100 hours in 30 days or less. And that 100 hours, as long as you keep learning and studying, that's going to put you way ahead of the people that you're going to be helping and becoming the expert of that niche for them. And I can tell you without a doubt, our niche is rugby. Elise and I both met because her brother-in-law played rugby on the same team that I did, and he was already a veteran player on that club when I came out and was new to the club. So that's how we got introduced originally. And then she played rugby for a few years, and we both got heavily involved with the local San Antonio Rugby Club and the Air Force Rugby Club. Plus, that's part of our lifestyle. We go to tournaments and watch international rugby all the time, probably at least yearly. We're going somewhere, not always overseas, because sometimes the international teams come here into the States too. And because of our involvement in rugby, we have lots of friends within the rugby community. So here in San Antonio and also all over Texas and nationally, think about it right off the top of my head, I can think of friends that we have from Ireland, Australia, New Zealand, Fiji, England, Germany, France, Wales, Scotland, Mexico, Canada, South Africa, Japan is another one where we have friends, and even the Philippines, Chile, Guam, Samoa, Argentina, and even Zimbabwe. So with this huge group of rugby friends, really the discovery of our niche was almost an accident, because we were so heavily involved with rugby and we're also in real estate. I just assumed that most of our friends in the rugby world knew that we were in real estate, but it wasn't until really running the numbers and looking at things that we realized how many of our rugby friends were buying houses but weren't using us as their agent. And so from there, we decided to make a conscious effort to let the rugby team know that we were in real estate. And we didn't want to be super salesy, so the best way for us to do that was to sponsor the rugby club. And we started small. The first year we got some koozies with the club logo on one side and our logo on the other. And then I think we sponsored some t-shirts another year. And then eventually we sponsored the jerseys, and then being around and doing all this stuff, eventually we became one of the main sponsors for the club. And then the other thing that we did to raise awareness was, as we helped someone from the club with their real estate transaction, we would get a review for Google or whatever, and then we would casually mention when we were talking with the other rugby players about real estate or things in general. It would just kind of come up, oh yeah, we helped Sip and Kristen buy their house, and we helped Mike and Dominique buy their house, and on and on. So that was very helpful once we started doing that and figured that part out. And the other thing is that we volunteered all the time for the club, even before we were sponsoring the club. It's a 501c3 charity, so they needed to raise money, recruit players, throw parties and host events for the end of year banquets when we had other clubs visiting from out of the country, Wales or England or whatever. So we were already involved doing all that. So it was a very natural fit for us. And again, we knew the lingo, the terminology, and we could talk rugby with anyone. And all of that made the niche even easier for us to focus on. And another highlight of focusing on that niche is that we get to do stuff that we enjoyed doing, but now we get to consider it work, right? So we were going to volunteer for the club anyway, and now they recognize us as a sponsor when we show up to those events. And we're going to be going to tournaments anyway, but now we use them as kind of business marketing and networking events, because we can take a past client to dinner while we're out somewhere, or we can buy a round of beers for the rugby people that are sitting around us, and we're just hanging out with them, having a fun time at the tournament. And then of course they want to ask what we do, and we get to talking, and they love it, and we get a fringe benefit out of it at the same time. And I've started tracking our numbers on that recently, and for sure we got 9 transactions directly related from the rugby team last year, and the year before that was either 5 or 6. And again, I'll track it for this year, but I'm sure it's going to be somewhere in that 5 to 10 deals range from the rugby club that we're getting every year. As long as we remain actively involved and keep helping the rugby team, I'm sure that they're going to keep helping us and promoting us too. So what are some of the niches? Well, there's things like luxury homes, and in San Antonio, basically anything over $500,000 would probably be considered luxury. There's things like veterans and military, knowing the VA loan, knowing about the funding fees, who's eligible to have those waived, what kind of properties you can buy with the VA loan. And then there's there's things like first-time home buyers. And let me tell you, helping a first-time home buyer is great because you feel so good of helping somebody get into their first home, but they love you for it and they send family and friends, and you kind of become the family realtor when you do that. So that's a fun and enjoyable, rewarding niche in and of itself. And then there's things like waterfront property, horse property, golf course property, those kinds of things. And knowing where to be on the golf course that's of higher value, what kind of grass and hay the horse property will produce, or waterfront property, knowing things about the lake itself or the ocean if it's seaside, or those types of things are all specific niches that you can learn about or be part of, right? Condos are another great niche. We did that when we were living downtown in a condo, kind of when the condos were first coming into the San Antonio area. And that was a great learning curve for us because we got to learn a lot of the ins and outs about condos, how they're different, insurance is different, the HOAs are kind of different. So we had to learn all about that stuff because it helped us become better owners, but it also helped us when we were working with our friends and neighbors that wanted to buy and sell condos in the area. And then there's investors, and there's all kinds of niches within the investor umbrella, but you've got rentals, somebody looking to buy and hold long term. You've got Airbnb type investors for somebody who's looking to do more of that short-term rental, that kind of stuff. And then you've got the fix and flip properties for somebody who wants to buy it at a discount, fix it up, and then resell it in a few months. So those are all very specific niches that you can get involved with. And then there's things like geo farming, and that's targeting a specific area, and that could be by zip code, by neighborhood, by various little cities in your area. So that those are all ways to geo farm. And then of course there's new build homes, and those are great because most of the time the new builder rep, they're going to be taking care of the contracts, scheduling the inspections, letting us know when the walkthroughs are. So really that's more of just coordinating with our clients to get to the various walkthroughs to see the progress of the house until we get to that closing. So those are always fun experiences as well. And then there's things like 1 acre plus homes, where having a home on a bit of land, that's not just as cut and dry as it sounds. I recently learned that if you get over 10 acres, that usually doesn't qualify for a VA FHA type loan. So you have to either get an exception or get something figured out with the spacing or the property on that. So those are all things that you can become an expert in and take over that niche. And those are all things that I would consider real estate specific niches because they're all different parts of the real estate business. But what we want to talk about now is bonus niches. And these are some of the niches that are outside of real estate, kind of specific niches like rugby in our case, but there's also others out there. And I'm always amazed to find out some of the different ones that people are utilizing. But the first one I like to call the rock and roll niche. And we found one really cool realtor. She loved that kind of music, the 80s hair band, rock and roll, 90s. I think everything up until like grunge, that was her thing. And that really became her niche because what she discovered is she had friends that she would be hanging out with at like the rock and roll clubs or the rock and roll cruises and those types of things. And by the nature of hanging out with everybody, they want to know what you do for a living. And so suddenly she became aware that they need to buy houses and they're asking her for information about real estate since that was her profession. So it was just much more fun for her to have clients that already liked the same thing she did, and they could really get to talking and get along really easily because they already trusted her when it came to like advice for real estate or whatever, because they knew her from this other world. And it also helped her be able to be more of herself and become less stuffy or packaged in a professional realtor box and then let loose into her rock and roll phase when she was off work. And then there's the nudist realtor niche, which I discovered by reading a magazine. I think it was the NAR put this out one year. And I think she was out in Florida, but she was basically a realtor that was a nudist herself. So she knew all the communities that allowed nudist colonies to be there and the beaches that were allowed to be nude or topless or things like that. And so it was kind of funny to learn that there were things like knowing how to talk to a seller and how to figure out, because some sellers were okay with their house being shown naked so you could get the feel of it, and other sellers were not comfortable with that. And then some neighborhoods you could be topless on the beach and in the backyards but not in the front yards or different things like that. So she was the go-to expert on all those things, and that became her niche. But that was again part of her lifestyle, and it wasn't really related to real estate specifically. It was related to that community of the other nudists that could trust her. And then there's some other niches that are simpler and easier, like dogs and pet friendly, right? There's people that their dogs are part of their family and they need to live by dog parks and pet friendly restaurants and neighborhoods that maybe you don't have to have the leash on at certain places and all that kind of stuff. So dog people, they need to have a realtor that knows them, right? Or there's even airport communities. And what I'm talking about is for people that own their own plane and have a pilot's license and like to fly, a lot of them will live by small, either private airports or a public airport that a neighborhood has been built around. And you have hangars to park your own planes, and you commute via flying 2 or 3 times a week versus driving. So there's communities out there just for that. And maybe that's a niche that a realtor could take on. And then obviously for us, we like rugby and that's our niche. So that's where we settled, but you could do that with other sports or other kind of community groups and hobbies like that. And so really the big takeaway when it comes to discovering your niche, I believe, is to pay attention to what you enjoy and the things that you would naturally do with or without getting paid for them. And if you can marry those up, like your favorite hobby along with your profession, then it makes just everything much more fun and enjoyable. It lets you be more of who you are in front of your clients instead of trying to be a professional on one end and then let your hair down when you get off of work. You can kind of be both at the same time. And that also lets you be the person that you naturally are and authentically are. And that kind of authenticity goes a long way for people, and it helps to build that know, like, and trust factor. When somebody already knows you, likes you, and trusts you, they're more willing to work with you on a big project like buying a house or selling a house. And they're also more willing to send you referral business and repeat business when they need to do another transaction down the road. And the good news when it comes to knowing more about your specific niche, like I mentioned earlier, you only need to have 100 hours to be ahead of 80% of that group. It gives you a head start with that niche because, like the rock and roll lady that we were talking about, she already knew the music, the bands, the places people will go, the cool places to hang out or go on vacation. So she was already doing all that, and she was a professional realtor. So that was almost a perfect fit for her. And now she was hanging out with her friends, getting more exposure, taking care of her marketing angle for her. And that's exactly what happened to us with the rugby community. And I'm sure that's the way it'll happen for you too once you get things rolling. And that's why we titled this Discovering Your Niche, because it's something that you don't just plug in and say, hey, I'm going to be this today. And this is more of a long-term vision of how you want to run your business and have fun and do all those things at the same time. So you really want to think about it more as a lifestyle type decision and take a little bit more time to think about it. And you don't have to be exactly right off the bat, because you can always develop and change things down the road. But it's a great way to get us started immediately and become the go-to person within a community. And of course, we want to encourage you. If we can do it, we know you can do it. And instead of taking 10 to 12 years to figure it out, let us help you so you can get where you want to go in 12 to 18 months. We can really help you shave a lot off that learning curve. So if you'd like to grow your real estate sales, build wealth, and have the life you dreamed of when you first got into real estate, we'd love to help you get there. Our contact information is in the description below. Thanks again for watching. And as we like to say, keep Austin weird and keep San Antonio cool.